Hello student, this is Sarwar AD here, and this is our lecture from the 5th week, and this is the first lecture on amphibian. Here this is the brief outline. Evolutionary pressure. At the start we will discuss on the phylogenetic relationship, and then we will discuss about the survey of the amphibians, and here we will discuss on three orders, order Gymnophonia, Chordata, and the finally Anura. But this is the outline for this week. So during this week we will discuss on the evolutionary perspective, here phylogenetic relationship, and then we will discuss on the survey of amphibian. Over here we will discuss order Gymnophonia and only the Gymnophonia. Finally there will be a practical on the study of few representative animal of the class Amphibia. Here these are the objective: to describe evolutionary perspective of the tetrapods, to describe origin of tetrapods. About the origin of tetrapod we have discussed earlier. To describe extant classification of the amphibian. Extant mean the organisms which are living representative of the amphibians. Extinct mean they have been finished off from the face of earth, and extant mean they are still living. And to describe characteristic of the amphibians and study few representative animal of the class Amphibia. Here these are the SLOs. You will be able to define and explain amphibians, and further you will be able to classify and give few characteristic of the animals from this class, and finally you will be able to interpret and interrelate different type of animal lineages to the amphibian. And these are the SLS for the practical. Here today we will mainly focus on the evolutionary relationship of amphibians. Slightly about this outline you have learned in the previous lecture when we discuss about the origin of tetrapod. Amphibian mean dual life, mean these are the organisms which spend partial life in the water bodies or partially on the land. Mean they have the adaptation in their body, they generally survive on both type of the conditions, but they must require water, as water is essential for their reproduction. Most common organism of the amphibians are the frog, toads, salamanders, and caecilians. First vertebrate adapted to land environment. These are the organisms they are considered as that they were the organism they first evolved on the terrestrial environment. Mean they adapted their body to survive on the land. Land environment generally require various type of the adaptation in animal body for living a life on the land or in the terrestrial condition, as like there are the variability of the temperature, there are the variability of the oxygen concentration and other type of the parameter which are component of the ecosystem. They may be the biological component, they may be the non-living component, and because they influence life on the land. So every organism which need to be adopted on the land, it should have various type of the adaptation in their bodies. These organisms, after insects or plant or other type of invertebrates, these are the organisms which proceeded onto the land by the plant, insect, and snails. Approximately 350 million years ago this happened. And when you say about these organisms, these are not adapted completely for the land environment, because they generally live in an area which is moistine conditions, which have moist condition and which have good availability of water. They don't move very far away from the water body because they cannot survive without water. They need water for their gaseous exchange somewhere, and the most important thing is their reproduction. Reproduction demand water, and these organisms they are not adapted to reproduce without water. They have various type of the structure which make them like fish, and various type of the structures which make them as reptile. So these structure are the things which make them to have a life between the water bodies or the water animal or the animal which live in the dry. Most cannot be far moved from the water. Especially the salamander, they cannot move very far away from the water because they can't survive. Things to be considered in water to When any animal goes on the land or move on the land, the first thing is the oxygen content of the air. We all are well aware that oxygen content of the air is higher than the content of the water. Less effort to take up oxygen from the air, because when you say about the oxygen to take up from water, it is difficult as compared to pick up oxygen from the air, because the air contains more amount of oxygen. The water contains just 2.4% of the oxygen as compared to air. So any animal living on the land is more convenient in the gaseous exchange. Air is less dense, so any animal, when you say about the animal living in water, they generally get a support for buoyancy from the water or from the biophysical parameter of the water. But any animal living on the land, it usually don't obtain or don't get that support as the water bodies or the water animal obtain from the water. Any animal living, they should work or they should have some appendages, they should have some body structures which should help them in sport or in lifting the body up from the land, or even on moving the land. They need a well supported body. Greater temperature fluctuation, we know that in air or on the land or in the terrestrial environment, temperature usually fluctuate seasonally, and animal usually need various type of the bodily adaptation to sustain or to survive in harsh condition, harsh environment. When you say greater temperature fluctuation, usually mean, we know that there are various type of the season, and in Pakistan we know that 4 proper seasons are enjoyed throughout the year, and every season have its own pros and cons and merit and demerits. But the organism want to live on the land, they need to cope this type of fluctuation in both type of the season. Even in the summer season, when there is a very high temperature, while in the spring season we know that the temperature is very low. Greater habitat variety mean, as compared to water, land usually provide lot of or variety of habitat, mean shelter, breeding areas, covers, and other type of the habitats are available for the animal living on the land. And these habitat or this variety of the habitat is generally present in the land. Here next is the topic that we need to discuss today: evolutionary relationship. Two lineages of the amphibians from the late Devonian and early Carboniferous periods can be distinguished. In the start, when you say about the late Devonian and early Carboniferous period, amphibians diverge into two lineages on the base of roof and skull attachment. Basically, roof of the posterior portion of the skull for the attachment to the lower vertebral column or the vertebrae. There were two types of the lineages diverged in the late Devonian period, and one of the lineage generally extinct and in the Carboniferous period, and the other group before its extinction led to the evolution of modern amphibians that we will discuss in few next coming lectures. Here, an amniotic egg. What is amniotic egg? Amniotic egg is usually egg that contain various type of the membranous structure which help dried condition or in drying condition, and which prevent the drying of the egg even in very harsh or extreme temperature. Left as a descendant and reptiles, birds, and mammals are the you can say now living organism from the amniotic lineage or the amniotes lineage. A second lineage flourished in the Jurassic period. This period is considered as the period of dinosaurs. Most of this lineage became extinct, but not before giving rise to three order of the living amphibians. This lineage is called the non-amniotic lineage or the non-amniote lineage. Non-amniote lineage means they don't contain various protective membrane or the layers in their egg, and so their egg can't withstand drying desiccation. So they need water. So their egg need water to sustain life inside, as compared to the amniotic egg, which contain various type of the extra membrane which prevent drying and desiccation, and reptiles and birds and mammals, especially reptile and birds, they we know that they generally move very far away from the water bodies, and they don't require and they don't need water for their reproduction. Earliest amphibians, we discuss about that low fin fish were the organisms that evolved into amphibians and were abundant during period when amphibians first appear in late Devonian or early Carboniferous period, and possess characteristics that benefited first amphibians. Mean they were containing various type of the structures, or they were adopted to move on land or in the terrestrial condition near the water bodies they were living in, and their law were adopted like structure which were very helpful for the movement on the land. Short mobile fins used as a stabilizer during swimming. When they were in the water body, they had been using their fins or the low fins for stabilizing during the swimming or the locomotion in the water. While when they had been on land, they used these structure as paddle to move across land in search of water or for foraging or for other type of the behavior essential for the survival. Earliest amphibians, here a diagram is shown. When these low fin fish were in the water body, they were using their fin for movement in for stabilizing purpose in the water bodies. But when they had been on the land for a short period, moving out from the water and going on the land, they had been using their fin for paddling or for moving on the land with these fin-like structure, which further change into limb-like structure. The next thing, they develop various type of the simplest lung in their body. Any organism, when you compare pond with great water bodies, pond usually dry in a condition when there is no rain, and short or small pond may dry out, and the fish living over there, they generally respire through gills, and they surely will die. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about that. This is the difference between life and death. Here, if any organism which possess only gills for the gaseous exchange, and if the water body dried out, and surely the organism will die, because there are not any chances for that fish or the organism to respire or to exchange gases between the body and its environment. Surely gill are not the supportive structure over there in that dry condition. If few fishes possess lung and other simplest structure like pneumatic sac or other simplest lung or this sort of the things in their body, in the dry condition, they surely will be in a state to respire for a short period, and during that period they may find various alternative found of the water bodies or the small pond, and they may go out and they may survive because they possess lung, and they may exchange various type of the gases with their environment. As compared to the fish containing only gills, they will surely die out. And so we can say that this is the matter of life and death. Gill useless in low dissolved oxygen areas or the dry areas. Surely when there is no water and the area is fully dried out, and gill will be useless and then will die surely in the low oxygen areas. Surviving fish of this period develop simple lung. Definitely, if lung take over instead of gills, surely they give the chance to the fish to survive dried out or the dry condition. Here, these are the fossil of ancient amphibians. They were the slender-like and retained many characteristics of the fishes like they were having tooth-like structure in their skull, and skull was snout-like and more elongated, and they were also possessing fin rays in their tails, as like modern fin fish contain, and opercular bone were present. It means they had been possessing various type of the structure which were like the fishes, and other structure which make them the animal which landed on the earth or in the dry condition. Several differences are there in this fossil which are not present in the fishes. Generally they contained pentadactyly limb, mean they were containing pentadactylous digit in their limb, mean they were finger-like structure in their limb which were 5 in number, and this was not seen in any fossil of the fishes. And they were also having various type of air-like structure which was in a state to pick up various type of the sounds from their surrounding or the environment. And we know that fish don't contain this type of the developed air, but they were containing various, or they are containing lateral line system for the detection of vibration in their environment, and they were very improved in their olfaction or in the olfactory powers as compared to modern fishes. Here the next fossil is from the ancient amphibian and very well known or famous fossil, Asteostega. Fossil from the eastern Greenland in the late Devonian deposit. Basically it was found in the late Devonian deposit from the Greenland, and its length was from the mouth to tail. Total length was 65 centimeter, and its pelvic and pectoral girdle were very strong and sturdy, as these are seen here. This is the pectoral and this is the pelvic region. These were very strong bone as compared to the other structure which are present in the fishes, and we have discussed that fish usually contain very light skeleton, as this is the demand of their sport and locomotion in the water bodies. Strong jaws suggest that it was a predator in shallow water. Here the jaw was very hard and strong, and that was the indication that they were predator. A skull that is similar in structure to ancient sarcopterygian fishes and a fin-like tail. These are the structures which were or which are present still in sarcopterygian stocks of the fishes. So we can say that these are the organisms which contain various types of the structures which are generally fish-like structures. So they may have been the fishes which further diverged to the land adaptation. Bony raised dorsal to the spine of the vertebrates for the tail fin-like fishes. Here you can say at the last of the tail of these fishes, you can see these structures also contain fin-like structures. So this structure has been very successful for moving in the water. Here this is the phylogenetic tree or the diagram of the modern amphibian, starting from the ray fin, and this diagram generally show the period from Silurian to Permian to the present, and the all period mentioned in this diagram are overall considered as Paleozoic era. Here starting from the ray finfish, further move to the lobe finfish. Lobe finfish are considered as among the stock which gave rise to the modern amphibians or other amniotes lineage of the living being. From the lobe finfish which diverge into lung fishes, which develop various type of the simplest lungs in their body and face dried out condition and surely survive over there, and further move to other land conditions for a short period, and finally they found water bodies and settled there, and whenever they needed or they faced dried condition, they just utilize their lung for the movement or short type of the migration from one pound to other pound, and they survive these conditions, and further these stocks diverge or gave rise to other organisms that include various type and various famous name like the Canthostega and Asteostega, Neptune and Grepton, and further amphibians, and finally amniotes. This is the diagram you can easily see in the Miller and Harley. Here this is also the evolution relationship among the amphibians in relations to extinct and extant. A dagger symbol is shown on the here. This is the dagger symbol. Dagger symbol is shown on the extinct, and where there is no dagger, these are the living representative of the amphibians and other amniotes. Here these are the various types of structure, for example starting from the four-limb structure for the terrestrial adaptation, the locomotion, further movement of the head and snap and grab jaw mechanism developed in these organisms for the land adaptation, and then few lineages develop immovable roof skull, and these organisms further diverge into Asteostegalia that was further extinct, and then Temnopontila, this type of name are there. These were also extinct, and living are the Anura Cadita and finally Gemnophonia, and Microsuria were also extinct. Another type of representative were also found and from the different deposit, but only they all had been extinct. Another structure movement between skull roof and cheek and extra embryonic membrane, especially amnion, chorion and allantois. These are three types of the structures or the extra embryonic membrane. Development of these membrane caused evolution or development of amniotic lineage or the amniotes lineage. Their egg is in a state to face or to prevent the desiccation or to face or withstand dry condition, drying out. So they are the organism, they can be produced without the water. But before these organisms, which are non-amniotic organism, mean amphibians. Amphibians are the organism which can't survive without the water because their reproduction demand water. Because their egg is not in a state to withstand desiccation or drying, so they need water. They surely will live in an area which is moisty, which contain moist in somewhere or in the nearby zone. They must contain water bodies, so they don't move very far away from the water body, because for their survival it is very requirement of their body to sustain life near the water bodies where there is the availability of water. Some zoologists think that monophyletic taxa like amniotic lineages of the early tetrapod gave rise to the reptile, birds and mammals, and other extinct taxa. Here dagger indicate extinct taxa. Synapomorphic characteristic of the lower taxonomic group are not indicated. Here this is not the detailed diagram of this phenomena. You can read out detail of the lecture or these things in the Miller and Harley, where you will find some alternative of this, or you will find some easy way to catch the total scenario, what was the thing they are going to discuss over here. This is all for today.